Best non-conference win of the season. That's a positive thing heading into SEC basketball play. We got to make sure our guys understand that our performance against Florida State can't be a one-time affair. It's got to be who we become and who we are. Getting ready to play a Tennessee team that really is their strengths are our weaknesses. They'll play a 2-2-1 press on all makes, and they play zone 100% of the time. So we've got to find a way to not turn the ball over against a 2-2-1 press, and we've got to find a way to figure out their 2-3 zone.
Question. Coach, how important was it to get that kind of quality out-of-conference win going into SEC play?
Well, I thought it was huge. I think Florida State, besides maybe TCU, was our strongest opponent that we had in non-conference play. So to give our guys some confidence going into SEC play, where you're going to see teams like Florida State on a day-to-day basis, gives our guys some confidence they can be the quality opponent, and to have that happen right before you go into SEC play, I think is good for our guys.
Did you see something in practice, Coach, after that game, a little more pep in their step, or anything that you could point to that one game may have helped?
Yeah, I like to say that, but guys are, they become satisfied real quickly after a win and things like that. So I tend to be a little bit harder on guys after wins like that, so we don't become complacent.
Chicken showed a few more glimpses of being back to form the other night with his explosion and driving the ball. You kind of see that.
Yeah, I think from each day we're starting to see a little bit more out of him as far as like getting back to his old explosive self. Now he's not fully there because what he does, he shows it in glimpses, and before he would show it the whole time. So we've got to get to a point where we don't see glimpses of that becomes who he is again. So I think that's going to continue to happen here as he gets more reps and he gets in better physical conditioning here. So we need that from him, obviously, because he's a guy that can create offense for us, and we need that.
How did Gavin respond after playing on ankle, and will Maurice play maybe Wednesday?
Gavin was fine. He had no sort of ill effects after playing the game. He was 100% in practice. He was able to compete and play. Mo Dunlap, still, that was the first time he had played without a splint. And so the whole time he had been playing in practice, he wasn't able to dribble or shoot with his right hand. So I thought it was really unfair to throw him out there just because he's taped now and not ever having taken a jump shot or being able to dribble with his right hand before.
Donnie was talking about on the SEC teleconference, y'all's paths have crossed over 25 years. Can you just talk about your relationship with him?
Yeah, me and DT go way back. He's a guy that I got acquainted with, and I was fascinated. I don't know if you know DT at all, but he has an unbelievable shoe collection. He has probably over like 250 pairs of shoes in his closet. He collects shoes. And so, when you're out in the recruiting circles as young assistants, you just sit down and kind of watch games. You start talking to guys, and we're somebody who will continue to stay in contact throughout our time there. So I think DT's a really good coach, a hard worker. He's really engaging personality. I think he does a good job. DT does what I think we all want to do. He's simplified the game for his kids. Every single time on a made basket, they're going to 2-2-1. And then they're going back to that zone every single time. So he's not worried about ball screen defense, or you switch this ball screen, or you hedge this ball screen, or you go under this ball screen. They're playing 2-3 zones. So what he's done is he's simplified the game for his kids so they can focus on playing hard.
I also mentioned, I think they're down to like 9 scholarship players now. They don't really have anybody to go to in the post. I mean, is that something you think y'all can exploit in this game?
Well, tell Donnie that when he gets down to 6 or 7 scholarship players, then I'll start feeling sympathetic for him.
But do you think you can, obviously you have some post players. Do you think that's something that point of emphasis for this game?
Yeah, we want to get the ball inside, but what makes it hard is like when a guy gets the ball inside, it's versus a zone, so there's natural help built in, so your guys don't have the tendency to have time to make legitimate post moves. Their post moves are hurried because there's so many bodies around them. So it's different than when you're playing a man. When you get the ball inside, you're kind of isolated at times. But against a zone, you have very few dribbles and actually make a play. So we want to get it there. I think we can get it there inside, but it's what happens once that big man gets the ball inside.
Talk about the development you've seen from, I know when a lot of positives in the McNeese State game, but just the development of Oliver from, it seems like you're gaining more confidence with the experience you're able to give him.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver Black is a kid that does everything the right way. He plays extremely hard. He's a tremendous defender. Having a luxury like Oliver Black, where you can switch ball screens and he can guard the other team's best perimeter defender as a four-man, is really something that's unique. He really does a good job on the defensive glass, crashing the offensive glass. What we try to get Oliver Black to do is be more selfish on the offensive end. I thought that he was getting some offensive rebounds or had some opportunities to get the ball in the post, and he was passing up on those. And he's got to start having some confidence that he can score down there. Now, is he going to be a scoring juggernaut right off the bat? No. But I thought he had some opportunities at the rim that he needs to look to finish.
The aggressiveness that I just showed in that Florida State game, is that kind of what you want to see out of his game? Sometimes I know you talked about him kind of being an unselfish guy at times, and is that when you be more aggressive?
Yeah, we need for him to be more aggressive because at this point in time, our two best guys coming off ball screen action are Chicken and IJ. And I think what IJ is, he wants to be such a good point guard, and for him being a point guard is sharing the basketball and not turning the basketball over. So I think that makes him real hesitant to stick his nose in there into the lane and make plays, and we need him to do that. And I thought you saw he was much more willing to put his nose in there and go make plays. And that's hard to do against Florida State because they have so much size at every position. So he needs to continue to be aggressive on the offensive end. And if he continues to be aggressive on the offensive end, then I think he'll see that he'll have more passing opportunities to make plays for his teammates.
Did you get to cross paths at all with Donnie as a player? I think he was a coach at Iowa, and you were a player then. Was that relationship right then, or did it happen after? Or
yeah, I think calling me a player is a little bit of a stretch. I was on the team and playing, and Donnie was coaching. But now I didn't remember him back then because obviously as a player you're not paying attention to the opposing team's coaching staff. But he said that he recalled that in the scouting report on me, and we talked about that and laughed about it. But yeah, I do recall him talking about that, but I don't remember it at that time.
Have you guys talked about beginning in Iowa and now being in the SEC or Mississippi at one point too?
Yeah, I saw him at the SEC meetings in Destin, Florida, and we kind of reminisced about that. Him coming from I think he was at the time an assistant coach at NAIA school, and I was a player at NAIA school, and now both of us being head coaches in the SEC is quite a journey.
I know the record may not indicate it, but is this the first time you feel like your team is prepared going into the SEC season in your 3 years here?
That's hard to say. I think from a body standpoint and having enough scholarship players available, I feel this is the first time because I always felt in the past 2 years we were hindered by our bodies because we only had 3 guys who could play in so-called post between 4 and 5, and if we ever got in foul trouble, that we really didn't have a chance to be successful. And I think for the first time we actually have some bodies in able to do that. Falou got in foul trouble against Florida State, and Gavin Ware was able to come in and be successful. When Oliver Black gets in foul trouble, Quez comes in, he can be successful. So I think from a body standpoint, I feel like we're prepared. But what I'd like to see us to do, I would like to go into SEC play with a string of success and not just one game success. And so that's the thing you're most concerned about. Can our guys continue to put together strings of success?
Coach, I know you're focused on Tennessee, but looking ahead to Florida, I know they're not the same Gators team as last year, but can they still be a dangerous team in the SEC?
Well, I haven't seen Florida play, but like on TV a couple times, and that's like probably a 5-minute stretch. So I think it's kind of unfair for me to say what I think of Florida at this point in time. But what I can say is I know they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, and they really haven't had their full personnel. But I do know this: Billy Donovan is a great coach, and he'll find a way to get those guys into the top echelon of the SEC.
In regards to three-pointers, I think you guys have 49 through 13 games. How do you evaluate that? Because is that a number you want, or if you want more, you're only shooting 26%. So how do you evaluate whether you shoot more or shoot less and go from that aspect of the game?
Well, I think what you want to do is I don't think there's anybody who would sit here and say they don't want to have more three-pointers made at this point in juncture in their season. But what you got to do is like, what are you having success at? And if you're having success shooting three-pointers, by all means, let's shoot more three-pointers. But if you're not having success shooting three-pointers, then what's the point of doing that? So I want our guys to continue to, I don't want them not taking three-point shots. What I don't want them doing is taking contested or bad three-point shots. So if you're wide open at the three-point line and you're a guy that can make three-pointers, I think you need to take that shot. And, hey, if it doesn't go in, it doesn't mean it was a bad shot. To me, what's a bad shot is if you're taking contested three-pointers. So guys like Fred Thomas, I.J. Reddy, Travis Daniels, guys like that, they need to take those three-pointers. And if they miss it, they miss it. But I don't want them not taking it just because they haven't had success shooting them at this point in time.
And kind of a follow-up, do you think you need, in the way the game is now, to be able to shoot three-pointers, or can you be successful struggling from three, but just focusing on the paint and that type of scoring?
I think you need happy balance. I think you need somebody out there that's a threat from the three-point line, whether you make them or not. I think goes from game to game, but I think you need somebody out there who's a legitimate threat at the three-point line. And I think we forget at a point in time, Fred Thomas was shooting 44% from the three-point line and was the leading three-point field goal percentage guy in the SEC, and he's going a little bit of a slump. So I still think he is a legitimate threat from the three-point line. I think the same thing with Travis Daniels and I.J. Reddy. We're just not a good three-point shooting team at this point in time, but we do have some guys that are capable of making a shot. But I think what happens is everybody focuses in on our guys who can make threes and really play off the guys who can't make threes.
I guess how important do you think Gavin is to the success of the team? I think in the wins he's averaging like 13-7, and the losses about 6-5. Is he kind of the guy that will define how the team goes in a certain game?
Well, I think what changes for Gavin Ware is I think he's our one guy who's a legitimate threat with his back to the basket. I think Raquez Johnson is a guy that can make some post moves, but he's more of a turn and face guy. He needs space in order to go make a play, but I think Gavin Ware is a true back-to-the-basket guy. And to be honest with you, though, there's not very many guys in college basketball anymore, period. It's not just Mississippi State that don't have back-to-the-basket guys that can score. So I think he's huge for us because he puts pressure on the defense, because you can run some set plays, you can get him involved in the zone, or you can throw it to him with his back in the basket, and the other team is concerned about him. So we need him to be a guy who's on the court for us that's a legitimate threat. As a post player. And I think the other thing that happens too is that he makes everybody out on the court better when he is that post threat, because now the teams are concerned about him.
Coach, it's kind of abstract, but recently Kobe Bryant kind of banged AAU basketball. As someone who is on the recruiting trail all the time, what opinion do you have of AAU, or do you like it, dislike it? I
haven't had the opportunity to actually read the column or the quotes from Kobe Bryant, but from some reaction on Twitter, I take it wasn't very positive that he talked about in light of AAU basketball.
Crushing us.
Yeah. But here's what I would say about that. I think AAU basketball gets a bad knock. And I think what you have in every walk of life, you have good people and you have bad people. And I think what happens is people focus on the bad things that happen in AAU basketball. But I think if you look at any walk of life, there's bad accountants, there's bad teachers, there's bad coaches, there's bad lawyers, there's people that do things that's unscrupulous in every walk of life. And I think what people have focused on is AAU. But I will say this, people act like AAU is the problem. It's not AAU is the problem, it's the players that's the problem. If you're playing AAU basketball, you're not playing AAU basketball for 24 hours a day for the whole summer. I mean, the biggest problem with college basketball right now is at the skill level. And we are not, our guys at the younger age are not spending time with their own individual game. It's like when I sit down and I was talking to a high school player here recently. He was a 2-guard, and he wanted to play the 1. And he was mad at his coach because he thought that he was playing him out of position and hurting him. And I said, man, that high school coach must be a real grinder, like to have you out there playing 14 hours a day. You know, he's like, what do you mean, coach? We only practice 2 hours a day. I said, oh, so you got about 12 to 14 hours on your own that you can actually go work on your point guard skills. And so that's the problem. Like, our guys, whether it be high school, middle school, college age, you need to spend time working on your own individual game. And so for us to blame AAU basketball for our lack of skill level or what have you, or high school coaches for the lack of skill level, when it's all said and done, like, if you're going to be a good basketball player, you got to spend some time on your own individual game.